All right, students, your first lab up this week is 3 Tech 11, lab for smallest numbers. Write a program whose inputs are three integers and whose output is the smallest of the three values. So, this week, your biggest aspect of what you're working on is understanding conditional statements. And in this, there's going to be three random numbers, and it needs to determine which ones. The smallest one and produce an output to show the user which one's the smallest one. So as we just said, three inputs. Get to type in that, establish the variable, and this one is going to be an int that is an input. And close that. Alright. Alright, so establish an integer so that way the variable can only accept a whole number. Uh, you know, again, if you want to accept a number that wasn't just a straight whole number, things like floats will give you 2 decimal points and allow you can do a string and accept anything they put in. But this way you ensure that they input a whole number. So we've established the three variables to create what the input is. Uh, and this week we discussed proper formatting, right? It was a big thing with papers, so make sure you label your papers. And again, remember this is how you comment. Put the class name, user, and just all right. So make sure that you're commenting on your code. Uh, that was the big takeaway from this week. I tried to express is a lot of people submitted without any comments at all. All right, and then we talked about white space. So here's the input of the variables, create space. Next up is going to be pretty much my conditional statement. The rest of this is just conditional statement to run through a loop to determine what is the smallest one. So you always start conditional with if statements. Uh, if num, so we're going to start with 1 is less than num 2. And so now you're giving it two conditionals. It's also less than uh, number 3, or the third input. All right. So if our number 1 is smaller than our number 2, and if it's a number 1, or if our number 1 is smaller than number 3, essentially our output, see how the program automatically put the print line indented in. Typically when a print's associated with it, it should always, well, typically it's supposed to always be indented, right? Part of proper formatting. In this case, we would want it to display number 1. So we're going to bring it back, create space, so I'm going to run an elif. I could run an if too, but elif, all right, number 2 less than number 1, and number 2 is less than Number 3, simple print. Number 2. All right, let's close this conditional loop. So number 3 is less than number 1. Number 1. And our number 3 variable is, so we got 1 is less than number 2. See, I'm putting around to say, hey, run this whole thing together. Print number 3. Hey. All right, let's go to submit mode. If I screwed up, it would have been here. I don't think so, though. It was a syntax error. All right, so my syntax error is the double quote around. It wasn't needed to run it together, so. Right? When you see syntax, you know that you put something in wrong, completely wrong to like running it. So you see how it's trying to highlight and tell me, hey, I'm good now. So let's submit for grading. All right, so where is my syntax error? Line 13, huh? Num 3. Yeah, well, let's run it as a UF. No. Int input. Oh, I'm screwing up my entire input. I spelled input wrong, so. There we go. And we pass all the comparisons. So I'm going back and adding these to show you something.